Hi friends, this is your friend Sunil Babbar, and I am sitting in the company of two very prominent architects. One is architect Kritika Singh and the other one is architect Garima Puria. And we are going to have a show, a topic, a city's ability to induce happiness. Yes. So what I'll do, I will ask Kritika Singh and Garima Puria to continue with the show.
Hi, this is Kritika. How are you?
Hi, this is Garima.
And today we have a very interesting topic for everyone to discuss.
The ability of cities to induce happiness.
So Garima, what do you think is happiness?
So, happiness, according to a lot of researchers, is a very complex state of mind. It is the overall life satisfaction. So, how is architecture and happiness related, you may ask? So, we are surrounded by architecture in our daily life, in every day, every hour of our life. We live in our homes, which is architecture. We retire there. We work in office places. And when we move out of the building, we step into the public realm, which is very like where we relax or where we retrieve ourselves.
Yeah.
So, in overall, every day we experience architecture, irrespective of our gender, irrespective of our race, irrespective of everything. These all spaces induce some kind of behavior changes, some kind of feelings in us. That is how architecture and happiness is related to each other.
Yes, definitely. I think that makes a lot of sense. And like when we talk about cities, we cannot overlook like the neighborhoods or the public spaces or the squares where people meet and greet and interact and form bonds and connection, because those are the spaces where people, let's say, fall in love with one another or fall in love with the building that is around them. And not only about buildings, but it's also about the flora and fauna of that spaces. So all these factors, the public interaction, the interaction with the spaces, the interaction with the nature, all these factors, they in a way contribute to having this kind of more satisfied or fulfilled experience of living in cities. Obviously experiencing spaces in many different ways. Public spaces have the ability to like host many people and have different kind of activities over there, like a festival or marriage or so on. So that is like a space where we spend most of our time as people, and it does make an impact on how we interact, not only to one another but also
To the spaces.
To the spaces itself, yeah. Because I think it's quite noteworthy to mention that urbanization is happening very rapidly. And right now, more than 50% of the global population is living in cities. And in the next further years, the trend is going to go upward. So there are more people who are going to live their homes in rural areas and are going to move to cities. So it becomes very essential to think about their well-being, how they experience spaces.
Yes, you're very right. So this happiness concept is not new to the world. Actually, it was started by the king of Bhutan. So like in India, we measure the success of a country by GDP. But in Bhutan, they have this concept of gross national happiness, where we measure the success of the country through happiness, how people are, how much comfort and how much with ease they are with themselves. So it is very important. This term happiness is not just important in our life but in architecture as well. So from that, the UN, they got inspired and they have started with World Happiness Report, where 150 countries participates even today, and it was started in 2012. And the Nordic countries, where you are studying right now, they are topping the list. Do you want to discuss about how and different it is from India, and how do you think like the happiness plays an important role there?
Yeah, definitely. I think it is pretty interesting how differently neighborhoods are planned in like maybe like the Nordic countries. So they have this concept, like their cities are more inclined towards sustainability, because like all the Nordic regions, they have a very big problem, like since the global warming and the sea levels are rising. So they need to have this kind of cities which are more climate responsive. So the sustainability plays a very important role in designing of cities. But sustainability doesn't limit till global warming, for example. It also goes beyond and caters to social interactions and creating spaces that are for everyone. So it becomes like a very essential core of the topic, like that they want to create like spaces which are public and where public feel comfortable and where they want to spend most of their time, like outdoors. So it's also like it makes a huge difference when you pay attention to the outdoors as much as you pay attention to the indoors.
Yes, you're very right. During my research in this topic, I stumbled upon a book called Happy City by Charles Montgomery. And as you mentioned, social interaction, so he has rightly mentioned that the social interaction plays an important role in inducing happiness. Because if we are interacting with someone, with a stranger, so that induces the feeling of trust within each other, which automatically gives you comfort, which leads to happiness. So yes, you're very right with social interaction term.
Yeah, and I think like happiness is, again, I think it's safe to say that it's a very subjective thing. Happiness could be different for different people. It could be different for you, yes, for me. But I think when it comes down to like city planning, so like catering to one specific site, it would be, maybe it's nice to have some sort of parameters to determine like which parameters to meet in order to like make happier neighborhoods or city. For example, having safer neighborhoods which are safe for women and as well as men and people of all other genders, having inclusivity in spaces, having spaces that are more safe for children, for example, which is a great matter of concern for all the parents, obviously. And so like in order to like make cities more for everyone, it would be interesting to cater these parameters as well as take care of the basic human needs, which are food, shelter, housing, and so on.
So yeah, happiness is a concept and it includes everything. It includes comfort, it includes inclusiveness, it includes aesthetics as well. So happiness is just like a big umbrella under which everything comes together. So we can talk about an example, like a different example you can state.
Yeah, the example that comes at the top of my head is the one in Rotterdam in Netherlands. So it's a pretty interesting example because Rotterdam was built like essentially for cars. So the city was ruined during the Second World War, and then the city that was built was very industrial, very car oriented, like it was essentially for cars and not so much for people. And eventually there came a report in Netherlands itself which said that, oh, Rotterdam is the worst city for children to live in. And I think this is something that they took to their hearts, like, and the people responsible for city planning and designing. So they decided to move from the trend of having the industrial city that is unsafe for children to making the entire city into like a huge playground for children. It is important because, like, as I mentioned before, a state of child's safety is the most valid concern of a parent. So having a city that caters to children also caters to people of different backgrounds and different cultures. Eventually they started removing all the asphalt and there are streets that are more oriented for pedestrians, that are more that can support like playgrounds on the street itself. For example, around the street, the main street, they have a 3-meter wide street which is essentially only for like, which can be used for children to play, to run around and so on. So it made the whole city into more interactive for children. So I think that is a really interesting way to proceed and also to view things. Obviously, it can vary from one place to another. Maybe the model in Rotterdam is not so suitable in some other country. Maybe it's not so suitable in, I don't know, Sweden or India or etc. But the thought that goes behind it is very important, and it's very essential to carry that thought in the profession when you're working.
Yes, like you stated an example of Rotterdam. So same here in Gurgaon also, there is a program called Nahagiri, and it is a like weekend program where all the car is restricted. So there are just people on the streets doing their thing, talking to each other, they are playing with each other. So only that particular time of the day, they are feeling like they are very happy, they are comfortable in everything. They don't have that fear of like accidents or anything. Their children can easily play on street. So these kind of moments, they really shape our community, and they really put us forward like in the direction of happiness.
Yes, definitely, that is so true. And since you mentioned about the project in Gurgaon, it also reminds me of a project in Pondicherry itself. So the Rock Beach in Pondicherry, like for those of you who are familiar with it, so when I was interning in Pondicherry, so like my house was very close to the beach. So it's essentially like a street for cars, but during the busy hours for pedestrians or when their social interactions are higher, they curbed like the car movement on the streets, and that entire place, like on this one side there's like this sort of market spaces, and the other side there's a beach, and the whole space became so dynamic, and there were so many like public activities that used to happen. And I remember like attending these kind of how would you call it, a natak on the street itself, and those experiences they stay with you. Like if I think about Pondicherry, like I would remember how I felt when I was there, and that is what it is supposed to be like.
And that connects us with the community as well.
Yes, absolutely. So on that note, we would like to conclude our talk show, and I hope that you found it interesting, and thank you so much.
Thank you.
Wow, interesting conversation with interesting people. I think we need to continue this kind of conversation in our next episodes as well. So, till then, what I would say, love you all.